If there was ever a good example of why it's not easy to represent the English national side, there wouldn't be any better than the recently concluded European Championship, where England lost out to Italy on penalties. The Three Lions gave a very good account of themselves throughout the tournament, and the final was the only game they lost. If we're being very honest here, English players should hold their heads up high, because they've actually done the whole nation proud and achieved something scores of their predecessors weren't able to do. Reaching the final of a major competition was a huge barrier, and this young side was able to break it, so one can hope that things will only get better from here on in. Sadly though, the likes of Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford and Bukayo Saka were subjected to a lot of abuse following their penalty heartbreak, and today we're going to talk about Sancho's feelings about the ordeal and how it affected him. We're also going to discuss how the Euros went for the young winger and how being part of the England setup was a steep learning curve for a player who's got a great future ahead of him. So make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon as we continue to provide all the latest happenings from the game that we call home. Moving to Germany and carving out a reputation. Ahead of the 2020 European Championship, Jadon Sancho was the only man in the England squad who had not played a senior game in English football. The winger was only 17 when he left Manchester City for Borussia Dortmund. Under Pep Guardiola, it was difficult for the talented player to break into the first team. However, it was quite a bold move by the teenager when he decided to ply his trade in a foreign league. As it turns out, it was quite a calculated move. Sancho arrived at the Signal Iduna Park with no expectations to hit the ground running. The German club somehow always know how to get the best out of young players, and they already had a plan for Sancho. After being introduced to German football through the club's B team, Sancho was eventually brought into the first team fold. He wasn't given a lot of chances in the first few months and was only consigned to cameo appearances, but his performances were too good to ignore, so the youngster was given his first start in a goalless draw against VfL Wolfsburg. A few months later, he would score his first goal for the club in a 4-0 win over Bayer Leverkusen. In the same game, Sancho provided 2 assists. By October 2018, Sancho was named Bundesliga Player of the Month after scoring 3 goals and providing 1 assist in 3 games. Records kept tumbling as Sancho became the first player born in the 2000s to score twice in a Bundesliga game, and the youngest ever to do so for his club. The record was repeated for the Champions League after Sancho scored against Atletico Madrid. By the end of the 18-19 campaign, Sancho had scored 12 goals and provided 14 assists. By then, the world had started noticing his talent, and there were calls from England that the precocious talent should return to home soil and carve out a career in the Premier League. The next campaign, Sancho scored 17 goals and provided 16 assists. It had become clear that the youngster was meant for bigger things, so when Man United came calling, we all knew that the move would eventually happen. Unfortunately, the Red Devils were unable to come up with the required finances to seal the deal. Sadly, talks about his future had some sort of effect on Sancho's performances, and the youngster managed just 8 goals and 11 assists in 26 league games for the club. Dortmund was struggling throughout the 2020-21 campaign, but Sancho's 6 goals and 4 assists helped the team lift the DFB Pokal. Right place at the right time. The reason why Sancho was able to shine so consistently in Germany at such a tender age was because he was not only given a platform by the club to do so, but also because German media doesn't really jump the gun when it comes to the younger players. A lot of talented English players have struggled to show consistency in the Premier League at a young age due to fan and media pressure. Their performances are always under the microscope. One day you're the best in the world, and the next day you're treated as the pariah. That, and a wrong manager at the wrong stage of your career, can also impact your performances. Dele Alli, for instance, was quite a star for Tottenham under Mauricio Pochettino, but the talented attacking midfielder became an anonymous presence for the Spurs during Jose Mourinho's forgettable time at the club. A rude awakening. Although he arrived at the Euros as a Bundesliga player, Jadon Sancho's long-awaited move to Old Trafford was in the works. Perhaps his time with Gareth Southgate's men serves as a rude awakening to the travails of being a big money signing for one of the most successful clubs in the Premier League era. English media can be unforgiving, and some of the fans can be disgusting and vile. England's run to the 2020 final was memorable, but if you look at Sancho's time with his fellow countrymen, it really wasn't that great. The youngster didn't even make it to the bench for the opener against Croatia and was only given a proper run during the 4-0 win over Ukraine. The 21-year-old has played a few games for the national side, but he wasn't seen as an integral part of the starting 11 throughout the tournament. There were calls from the media to include him and Jack Grealish in the starting 11 more often, but Southgate's pragmatic approach would never allow that to happen. It was even more surprising to see that Sancho was put on the field in the last few minutes of the final with the Italians. The manager apparently felt that a 21-year-old who didn't have sufficient minutes on the pitch was ready to step up and take that massive responsibility. Like we've said many times, penalties are a lottery and they can go either way, even though chances of missing from the spot are far less than scoring. Sadly for Sancho, his spot kick was easily saved by Gianluigi Donnarumma, who would later on deny Bukayo Saka and seal Italy's second European Championship triumph. The young winger was inconsolable once the game ended, but what would follow next was even worse. Hate won. Now that Sancho, Rashford and Saka all that missed their penalties, a lot of people feared for them. In recent months, players have been abused for their performances on social media, so it wasn't really surprising that all three men faced that kind of abuse from those whose actions paint an entire nation with the same brush. While the country's manager, the Prime Minister and Football Association condemned the abuse, at the end of the day, hate ended up winning. The entire world has chimed in on their opinion about England as a country, and a general impression is that the country's fans are the worst. Such opinions are a little bit unfair on a lot of the English supporters, who are decent human beings and remain civil regardless of how their team does. But the sad part is that these people aren't going to be noticed, since they're easily overshadowed by these vile creatures who happen to call themselves fans of the beautiful game. In an Instagram post, Sancho decided to speak up and said that as a society, everyone needs to do better and requested the racists be held accountable. The soon-to-be Manchester United player said that he wasn't surprised to see the abuse directed towards him and his teammates. To all the young people who have received similar abuse, hold your heads up high and keep chasing the dream, he added. I am proud of this England team. I want to say a massive thank you for all the positive messages and love and support that far outweighed the negative. It's been an honour as always representing England and wearing the Three Lions shirt, and I have no doubt we'll be back even stronger. Sancho also admitted that missing the penalty was the worst feeling he's felt in his career, and revealed that he was confident to take the penalty for his country. The youngster apologised for missing from the spot, but at the end of the day, is there someone who would apologise to him and the other two guys for treating them this way? Rashford's mural in Withington was desecrated in the aftermath, but thankfully decent human beings still outnumber the trashy ones. His mural was eventually covered in messages of support and later repaired, which goes on to show that a lot of English fans do care about the young men and women who represent their country. For a day, perhaps racism and hate had won, and it felt as if there was once again no hope left for the human race. Thankfully though, we do have some really great people living amongst us who showed us that no matter how far hate can take things, respect, love and understanding will win at the end of the day. What's next for Sancho? So, the young winger has reportedly already done his medical at United and will be announced soon. He will then go on a holiday where he'll recuperate and then report for pre-season. Of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's man management skills will be needed in order to help both Sancho and Rashford to move on from this ordeal. Mikel Arteta will be doing the same for Bukayo Saka. The upcoming season will be a crucial one for Sancho, in the sense that he'll not only have to prove his doubters wrong, but also make sure that any further abuse he receives online doesn't impact his displays for a club that is looking to move on to better things in the coming years.